This content is for educational and entertainment purposes only. It does not constitute investment advice, and no financial decisions should be based solely on this content. Always do your own research before making any trading decisions. Have you ever heard of the trading indicator called Bollinger Bands? Well, if you have, and you're like me, you've probably figured out pretty fast that Bollinger Bands have a lot of trouble with being helpful. But what if there was a trading bands indicator that could actually be helpful, one that traders can actually use to find trigger points? And as you all know by now, we certainly have an indicator that fits the bill. Introducing IQ Bands. The IQ Bands indicator, developed by Trading IQ, uses a proprietary smoothing calculation to approximate relatively high and low prices. I know, this sounds pretty complex, but using IQ Bands to analyze the markets is actually really easy, and I'm going to show you exactly how traders use this tool to spot trigger points on their charts. Now, before I show you guys how IQ Bands works, we highly appreciate a like, comment, and subscription on this video, and check out the Trading IQ Discord server, where we have a growing, thriving trading community that talks analysis, backtesting, and anything related to trading. Hello traders. Now on my chart, which is currently the Bitcoin USDT 30-minute chart, is the IQ Bands indicator. And from first inspection of the IQ Bands indicator, you can see we have some well-designed looking price bands that fit around where the current price is located. Now, as I'm sure you can imagine, the more red-filled area of the IQ Bands indicates that price is trading at relatively high price areas regarding recent volatility in market structure, while the blue filled in areas of the IQ Bands indicate that price is trading relatively low compared to recent volatility in market structure. And just like the Bollinger Bands indicator, this is how most traders use the IQ Bands indicator to identify price areas where price would be relatively too high or relatively too low when taking into account market structure in recent volatility. Now, the IQ Bands are calculated using custom smoothing with exponential decay and a few other mathematical concepts that we won't dive into. But ultimately, the goal of IQ Bands is to just be more informative than Bollinger Bands. And we can use this table in the top right to confirm that the IQ Bands are more informative than Bollinger Bands by looking at the number of closes outside of the Bollinger Bands versus the number of closes outside of the IQ Bands. For the asset currently on my chart, the closes outside of the IQ Bands is 6.9%, where the closes outside of the Bollinger Bands is almost double at 12.34%. This means that price trades outside of the IQ Bands much less than it trades outside of the Bollinger Bands. And this is extremely helpful information to know when building a counter trend trading strategy or a mean reversion trading strategy. Or for those who are interested in creating breakout strategies, you can also use IQ Bands in this information above to do that as well. Now, the easiest way to use IQ Bands for analysis is to just look at when price comes very near either the lower band here or the upper band here, or better yet, when price exceeds the lower band as it did here, or exceeds the upper band. Now, ultimately, by looking at this information box above, we can see that when price closes outside of the IQ Bands, it doesn't stay outside of the bands for very long. Now, regardless of IQ Bands, at some point, prices will generally revert towards their mean or average price over time. And traders in our community use IQ Bands in order to find trading opportunities where price has moved too far away from the average price, and there's potential for price to move back towards the long-term average. And we can pretty much see that that is what happened here in this demonstration, where price moved well beyond the lower band of the IQ Bands and then eventually mean reverted back towards the average price. And a lot of traders in our community look at this occurrence as an example longed opportunity. I also want to show you these two strong examples of when price moved outside of the IQ Bands and then mean reverted or started to trade more towards the long-term average again. We can see that price closed well above the IQ Bands to the upside here. Now, by looking at this occurrence, traders who use the IQ Bands would consider price to be relatively high compared to the long-term average. and would view this as an example short opportunity based on further confirmations or confluences for this demonstration. Now, we can see that in this demonstration, after price closed above the upper bands, price did start to mean revert back towards the long-term average until finally closing beneath the lower bands in this example here. Now, traders who use the IQ bands will consider price closing beneath the lower bands here as an example long opportunity for this demonstration, in expectation of price mean reverting upwards towards the long-term average. And we can see that in this example, that's pretty much what happened. Price became relatively too high according to the IQ bands and mean reverted back towards the long-term average to the downside until price became relatively too low and then mean reverted upwards back towards the long-term average. This is exactly how traders who use IQ bands analyze the markets. So now that we understand how traders use this tool to spot mean reversion opportunities, I want to show you one strategy that was brought to my attention in our Trading IQ Discord server. If we go to the hike in the She chart with IQ bands, we're going to check out a demonstration trading strategy that traders came up with in our Trading IQ Discord server. Of course, this is not financial advice, and all content in this video is for educational and entertainment purposes only, and these are only demonstrations. Now, let's check out what happens when the hike in a She chart moves outside of the bands. We can see it looks pretty much like the traditional candlestick chart, but we have an actual trigger point when using the hike in a She chart here. Now, what we're looking for is when price moves to the downside of the IQ bands, such as it did here, and closes in trades outside of the IQ bands. We're looking for the first hike in a She green candlestick where the open price is equal to the low price. This is because a green hike in a She candlestick where the low price is equal to the open price is traditionally considered a sign of bullish momentum. So what we want to see is for price to trade beneath the lower band, which is considered a relatively low price area, and then for a sign bullish momentum to appear on the hike in a She chart. And this would be a demonstration or example long opportunity that traders are using in our server, strictly for testing purposes. After this hike in a She candle formed, we can see a price increase in upside mean reversion back towards the long-term average. And if we also take a look at when price moved above the upper band here, the first thing we're going to look for after price closes outside of the upper band is for a red hike in a She candlestick where the high price of the red candlestick is equal to the open price of the red candlestick. This is traditionally considered strong bearish momentum on a hike in a She chart. So we're looking for a sign of bearish momentum after price has been considered relatively high based on the IQ bands. And from here, traders would consider this an example short opportunity, and traders who use this strategy would look for price to mean revert back towards the long-term average to the downside. If you found this video helpful, please like, comment, and subscribe with notifications on. We really appreciate it here at Trading IQ, any support that you're able to show, and check out our trading Discord server where we have a growing, thriving community of active traders talking backtesting, analysis, and much more. Thank you for watching this video, and I hope to see you soon.